Bienvenidos, muy buenas noches a todos. Mi nombre es Cindy Solís y ahora les presento como era su clase número 1 con la profesora Olga Salazar de la materia Evaluación de los Aprendizajes. Grupo Inglés Enseñanza A25. Voy a dar unos parámetros para que la profesora pueda iniciar la sesión del día de hoy. Los parámetros a seguir son los siguientes. Las sesiones se graban, pueden verlas nuevamente en plataforma virtual. Les solicitamos que por favor silencien su micrófono y puedan activarlo cuando quieran hacer consulta o aporte con el permiso del docente. Les pedimos que mantenga su cámara activa. De no poder hacerlo, enviar su excusa por el chat de Zoom. De lo contrario, será retirada la sesión y les será restado puntos en la evaluación del docente. Mi rol como orador es apoyar en la parte técnica, ya personal o general. Les exhorto a tener bolígrafo y papel para hacer sus anotaciones y aprovechar al máximo esta sesión. Esta sesión tiene una duración de 60 minutos. Sin más carga, lo dejo con la profesora.
Gracias, cariño, muy amable. Okay, welcome everyone. I'm Professor Olga and I will be with you during this subject that is called Assessment of Learning. Let's start. Give me a moment. Okay. The first topic that we are going to discuss today is evaluation in education. So evaluation in education is a systematic process of collecting, analyzing, interpreting information to determine the effectiveness of teaching, learning, program, and educational objectives. Each educator may inform decisions about student achievement, instructional method, and educational quality. Evaluation involves making judgments based on evidence gathered through different assessment methods. Purpose of evaluation, determine learning outcome, achievement by a student, improve teaching and learning processes, measure the effectiveness of educational program and curriculum, provide accountability for school, teachers, and educational institutions, support decision-making regarding to promotion, certification, and curriculum revision. Type of evaluation. We have formative, summative, and diagnostic. Formative evaluation conducted during the learning process, provide feedback for improvement. Summative evaluation conducted at the end of the unit, course, or program, measure overall achievement. And diagnostics conducted before instruction began, identify student strengths and weakness. As you see, the right order of this type of evaluation is, the first one is diagnostic, then formative, and the final one is summative, okay? This is the correct order if you are going to be a teacher. Okay, in education, evaluation is seen as an ongoing process which involves the gathering and organization of data collected pertaining of a student performance of achievement. Educational evaluation aims to improve the educational process by giving the educator information of the effectiveness of current strategies. Evaluation also provides specific suggestions to help educators improve in specific areas. Purpose or function of evaluation: diagnosis to identify the learning strength or weakness, prediction to identify potential ability or attitude, selection help to choose the right person for the right course, and grading help to rank order the learning of given group. Let's see a video about this. Oh, wait a minute. Let's see.
¿Qué estarías dispuesta a hacer para controlar la transpiración? Que tu piel no pague el costo por protegerte del...
There are lots of different ways to assess student learning, and establishing some common vocabulary provides a framework for identifying the most appropriate ways to use assessment as a part of quality instruction. Two of the most common types are formative assessment and summative assessment. Let's break those down. Think of formative assessment as informing instruction, and summative assessment as a summary of learning. Formative assessments are really a part of formative instruction. The goal of formative assessments is to inform instruction along the way so that teachers can react in real time by modifying instruction, including how the material is being taught and which students are receiving extra help or extra challenge. Formative assessments can take on many variations, from informal checks for understanding, such as asking students to verbally respond to questions during lessons, to more formal contexts, such as quizzes in the middle of a unit or diagnostic tests prior to teaching. For summative assessments, the goal is to determine if the student met the learning targets specified in a particular amount of time, such as a unit test or an end-of-grade test. Summative assessments include content students have learned over many weeks or months, or in some cases, even more than 1 year, such as a high school exit exam. Because summative assessments are given after instruction has occurred rather than during instruction, the results provide information about how the student is doing for accountability and more formal monitoring progress. For example, parents can see whether their student met grade level expectations based on an end-of-grade proficiency test. Sometimes the same test could be summative or formative, depending on how it is used. For example, an educator might give a pretest at the beginning of a unit as a formative assessment, and then administer a similar version of that test as a summative assessment at the end of the unit. Instruction is most effective when including both formative and summative assessments, and Edmentum products use both. In ExactPath, our personalized learning program, students complete a diagnostic assessment at the beginning, middle, and end of the year to determine where students are ready to learn. ExactPath also includes smaller formative assessments such as progress checks that are used to inform what content the student receives next in the learning path. Study Island takes a different approach to summative and formative assessments by focusing on standard.
So as you see, as in the video it says, the first thing that you are going to apply is the diagnostic. The diagnostic test is the first one, and then the formative, and then the summative, because the summative is the last one. Let's continue. The order is important because you can't apply a summative activity if you haven't done a diagnostic or a formative. Okay, let's continue. Okay, type of evaluation. We have the placement evaluation, formative evaluation, diagnostic evaluation, and summative evaluation. The placement evaluation. Okay. The placement evaluation is designed to place the right person in the right place. It's just the entire performance of the learning, the success of the instructional process depends on the success of placement evaluation. The main objective of such evaluation is to determine the position of the learning in the instructional sequence. When it happened, before the structure began. So the purpose of this is to check a student knowledge and skill to put them in the most appropriate class, level, or program. Formatting. The formative evaluation takes place during the process of instructions. Its main objective to provide continuous feedback to both the teacher and the student concerning learning success and future while instruction it is in process. When it happens during the teaching and learning process. So the objective of this formative evaluation is to monitor ongoing student progress, give fast feedback, and help the teachers adjust their method. So this let me know if the strategy that I apply with my student is working or not. So it is not working, I have to change my strategy. Diagnostic evaluation. So in the diagnostic evaluation, the student learning difficulties or weakness are identified during the instruction. It attempts to discover the specific areas of weakness, in particular course of instruction, and try to provide remedial measures. When it happens, done before or at the very start of a new unit or course. That's the reason that is this. I told you that this is the first one that you have to apply, the diagnostic one. Like I said, it has to be done before you start the unit. Summative evaluation. Summative evaluation takes place at the conclusion of a unit to know to what extent the objective has been accomplished. When it happens, at the end of the unit, at the end of the course. Let's continue. Okay, let's see a video about this.
Proficiency and state summative test.
I think that is the same video. Let me check.
Soy Salvador, conductor en InDrive. En honor a mi nombre, siempre estoy salvando a alguien.
¡Me salvaste!
Porque en InDrive eliges el precio, pero al escoger al conductor, también eliges seguridad. Viaja seguro y a un precio justo.
Yeah, it is the same. Let me change the video. Here you go.
In this video, I'm going to be going over the differences between assessment and evaluation. So I'm going to explain some of the terms, and then at the end of the video, I'm going to explain how you're going to be specifically using it within your lesson plan. So assessment and evaluation are not the same things. They should not be used interchangeably because they have different purposes. So with assessment, what assessment does is it's a systematic collection, ongoing, to collect data in order to inform instruction. So it's these little small things that you're doing along the way to check for understanding. So that's why it's talking about an ongoing process. Systematic means that there's a structure to it, there's a pace to it. And again, you're collecting these pieces of information in order to inform your instruction. So let's say you're teaching a lesson, you're going to stop, you're going to ask a question. Okay, they kind of got it, they kind of didn't, let me say it a different way. All right, so now I've reset it. Now I'm going to have you work on this something at your tabletops. And as you're walking around, you're looking at what they're writing or what they're doing, and you're making an informed opinion about whether or not they're understanding, so it can inform your instruction in the moment. And then at the end, you know, you're going to discuss it, and you're saying, okay, so maybe they got it, maybe they didn't. Here's what I need to do tomorrow. So that's the assessment piece. It's this ongoing, constant, informal way to check for understanding. Where evaluation is a one moment in time. In terms of thinking about it like assessment, you've done the instruction all along the way. You've stopped, you've assessed, you've modified instruction, you've come back, you've done it a little bit different. Now at the end of the unit, now's the time just to see, okay, what's the measurement against those outcomes? How do they do on these standards? How do they do on these TEKS? So there's a number of things that you're evaluating them on, and you're giving them kind of a one-shot opportunity to demonstrate what they know. And so another way to look at it is assessment is to increase the quality, and evaluation is to judge the quality after it's done. So it's a little bit about what I'm having you do right now. You've worked on a couple of the submissions, and I'm looking at those to say, okay, here's what needs to be done better. Maybe I need to go back and I need to reteach that part again. Maybe I need to add some additional opportunities like going in and touching on blooms again, or maybe I need to tweak it a little bit and tell them to look about learning objectives in this way. So you're working towards that eventual evaluation with your final submission, where I'm sitting back and I'm like, okay, now here's these measurements that I need to evaluate or judge them on. How do they do? Where again, those little smaller pieces is to check for understanding. You know, for example, with the Bloom's taxonomy quiz or with the instructional objectives worksheet, those are opportunities for me to see how you're understanding the material. So for the purposes of the lesson plans, you are not going to be doing an evaluation. You're not doing just kind of a one-stop shop at the end of the unit. So you're going to be doing an assessment piece, which tend to be a little bit more informal, let's say. And there are different types of assessments. There's formative assessments and there's summative assessments. Formative assessments, it's more about the process that's going on. It's not necessarily a test. And so the difference between a formative assessment and a summative assessment is kind of what you're using it for. So with formative, it's to inform during instruction or for immediate or near future use. So it is those examples that I was giving you. So you're going to stop in the middle, you're going to do a discussion, and you're checking for understanding. If the students aren't understanding, you're going to tweak your instruction right then and maybe spend more time on it. Or you're going to say, tomorrow I need to come back and I need to touch on that again. So that's your formative assessment. You're using that assessment to immediately change your instruction, either right on the spot or let's say for the next lesson. Sorry. So some of the examples that I provide here is you could do a self-check. You could, again, do an open-ended discussion. Maybe the students are working in stations and you're going around and you're checking those things. Observations are also part of formative assessments when you're just looking at their work, seeing what they're doing. So they take a variety of forms, and I've given you a website link in the Canvas modules that takes you to a lot of examples of formative.
The formative one is the process of learning. The purpose is to inform during the instructions, and you determine if the strategy that you are applying in the classroom is the right one to teach the lesson. If it doesn't work, change the strategies. And the summative one is the purpose and the objective is to demonstrate what the student has learned during the class, during the unit. That is the big difference between summative and formative assignment. Let's continue. Okay. Key difference between assessment and evaluation. So assessment, ongoing and formative, help identify learning gap, support instructional adjustment, encourage student growth and self-reflection, and the evaluation, making value judgment based on assignment data, determining whether objective has been achieved, used for grading, certification, and educational decision making. So, as a conclusion, assessment and evaluation are process in education. Assignment gather evidence about learning and support improvement, while evaluating interpreted the evidence to determine the value, the quality, or effectiveness of the student performance. So instruction or educational program. Effective education requires both process to ensure continuous improvement and achievement of learning goals. If you are going to be a teacher, you have to be clear with this type of evaluation because it is important. As I said in the beginning of the class, you can apply a summative evaluation if you haven't done a diagnostic or a formative assignment, okay? You have to be clear in this advice for use. So it has been all for tonight. This is a short unit. Remember that you have a assignment that you have to complete in the platform, okay? And remember that the reading and the video that you have in the platform is the same video and the same reading, the same test that you have in the class with me here in the PowerPoints. So if you learn my class, you will be ready for take the assessment that you have in the platform, okay? See you next Monday. I hope to see you the next Monday. That's all for tonight. Mi vida, he terminado. Cindy.
Que tenga una excelente noche, profe. Nos vemos en la siguiente clase.